Chapter 6, Playing God. A dogged in on a ruthless sunset, the lay of the land promised a hazard at darkening, like an omen of evil. Our 5-man ambush patrol was as one with nervous energy. For some strange reason, on the spot, we all decided to move a half-click west and not call in to inform base camp. We dug in and set up for the night. Surprise is the essence of ambush. Imagine our surprise as 3 squads of VC surrounded us in a matter of heartbeats. We married the ground, made love to the recessed earth. The Kong ran past in confident force. We held our collective breath. As I keyed the radio, I whispered, "CP, this is Outpost Pros, over." "Go ahead, Pros, we read, over." 2 mortar crews and 20 sappers setting up your west berm area. Please advise. Over. "How the hell do you know? You're not supposed to be there." Over. "As the Nam is my playground, I wander at will," I caustically remarked. "All right, Pros, maneuver into flanking position and await orders. Over." "Negative, CP. I don't know if there aren't more Kong coming up behind. We'll remain in place till the fireworks begin. Out." "USOB, you do as I say or I'll have your ass. USOB, I'll ruin your fucking life." Like it wasn't already ruined now. "Sorry, CP, transmission garbled. Out." I smiled to myself at my ingenious method of insubordination. Sure enough, not 5 minutes later, 2 more mortar teams moved in and set up 15 feet in front of us. I whispered to Bailey, "Let them fire off 2 each, then open up. Pass it on." Within 3 minutes, the whoosh of the 81mm mortars began. 1, 2, 3, 4. We hit them with withering M60 and M16 fire at ground level. It was over in seconds. Devastating. We scrambled to the mangled VC bodies just to be sure. No need to. Back in position, we waited for the firefight we could hear in the distance to end. Then, as the last scattered shots sounded in the distance, I keyed the radio and whispered, "Outpost in position to ambush retreating VC. Refrain from using 155s or mortars. Over." "Fuck you, Poet. Out." Shit, that stupid Louie's gonna fire on us. The clump and whine of 155s gave truth to my fears. 30 yards beyond us, the explosions tore into the ground. We laid low and awaited the VC. A minute later, as the big guns grew quiet, about 15 VC ran at us without seeing us. We opened fire, and death screamed in various degrees of agony. Within minutes, we had 15 confirmed dead, plus the 4 earlier, bringing our total that night to 19. As dawn broke, a squad from base camp linked up with us, headed by the lieutenant. "Sorry, Poet, your last transmission was garbled. Hope everything's all right." "No sweat, Louie," I bit back my anger. 19 kills. How many did you guys get?" "Well, 1 confirmed. But plenty of blood trails. We kicked ass." "Sure you did, Louie, sure you did." I laughed. 2 weeks later, the VC lobbed mortars into the firebase. I crept silently to Louie's hooch, pulled the pin on her frag, and rolled it in. The official version was a direct hit by VC mortar fire, but everyone knew that Louie just didn't understand war and should never have come to the godless Nam. "Grandpa, why does power corrupt?" "I guess that's the nature of man, son. He just won't see that power is only an illusion." Rise up. In retrospect, a man can find the contrivance to manipulate events according to the colors he finds most pleasing. Yet in his mind, the color illuminates and brightly shines as truth entwines his heart with the spirit of love. The devil is a lie, as God is but the essence of creation. We all belong somewhere in this equation. Darkness is but shadow seeking light. Sadness is but dwelling in its plight. Rise up, and live eternal life. You will anyway someday, so do it now. Black is white, day is night. Rise up and know how wrong evolves to right. The pendulum swung to and fro in an ellipse of time, advancing along the infinite spiral of thought. I rode the dragon without emotion, simply enjoying the ride. I always travel light. The poker game had started before the pay officer had even left Fire Support Base T.S. Eliot. "Hey, Poet, you going to pass or play?" Hollywood queried. With a full house, 8s over 5s, I smiled and said, "I'll call your 20 and bump you 10. Hollywood folded, as did one toke, but Razor called and laid down 3 10s and 2 trays. I had lasted 14 hands before I went broke this time, my personal record. I was definitely improving. Everyone crowded around me as they knew whenever I was broke I would sell my stash, extra weapons, gold chains, ivory pipe collection, anything but my 16. Hell, once I even tried to sell the quad to get back in the game. I sat back down with $300 and lasted 12 hands this time. I wandered out to the quad and reflected on my losses, trying to understand why I always lost these card games. Maybe to divest myself of worthless baggage, or maybe just the pattern of luck. Who knows, I thought, as I eyed my 3x5 Miami Dolphin bath towel drying in the sun. "Say, Jonesy, what'll you give me for my NFL bath towel?" $5, he responded. "Okay, I'll take it." Going back inside, I saw the players were taking a 10-minute break. The game had lasted 5 hours already and probably would last 5 or 6 more. "Who wants to cut the deck for $5? I asked. Keeler laughed and said, "I'll cut you, Poet." He cut a queen, I cut a king. "Double or no?" I asked. "Sure," he chuckled, cutting a 9. I turned over a jack. I won 10 more cuts in a row, and the game started back with me in it. For the next 5 hours, my hands were mostly winners, 2,000 MPC plus various weapons and stashes later, and it was just me and Keeler again. Everyone else watched as aces came my way. Keeler laid down 3 5s and 2 aces as I put down 3 aces. Uh-oh, something wrong. One of Keeler's aces was from a different deck. As the hooch grew silent in anticipation, I smiled and whispered malevolently, "Keeler, my Chi-Com is pointed at your belly. If you're still sitting there in 10 seconds, you're going to lose a lot of blood." He bolted, and I fired for effect at the chair he had just vacated so he'd know I hadn't bluffed. The murmurs of approval were no surprise. You don't cheat a man you rely on in combat for love or gold. Keeler left for base camp the next day in the interests of his own safety. I went to Bangkok 3 days later for some R&R with lots of money. "Grandpa, what does honor mean?" "The action of proper intent, son." The road sign read, Morro Bay, 34 miles. I stuck out my thumb and a 69 Plymouth pulled over. Opening the passenger door, I put my backpack and guitar in the back seat. "Thanks for stopping," I said as I turned and gazed into the most beautiful eyes I'd ever seen. As I swam back to the surface, she smiled and said, "You're welcome. My name's Cherie." "Hi, I'm Poet," I replied. She didn't seem surprised, just interested. She asked, "Where are you heading, Poet?" "L.A., I think. I'm not really sure." "Good attitude." She blessed me with another warm smile, and an understanding expression spread softly across her face. I noticed her left leg was twisted with polio. Mutual compassion bound us as instant friends. My penchant for philosophy had left my mind in a similar state of disrepair. She knew silent communication through thought. "You need a shower and a hot meal," she stated matter-of-factly. She went on, "You can stay with me for a few days if you like. I live in Morro Bay. We can talk." "I'd like that," I thanked her. "How come I love people and hate society?" I asked her as she set a bowl of herb and lentil soup in front of me. "Your love must become like a thread that runs in unbroken strands through the instants when your mind reacts in hasty judgments to that which befalls you or your fellow man. We all have our own testing ground for theory and motive, yet we also have the capacity to endeavor together. Attainment is conscious action. An individual thought affects the cosmic whole, just as the cosmic whole affects an individual thought. Don't get caught up in direction to the point where you can't appreciate the scenery, but don't let the view keep you from your journey. Sooner or later, we all need each other. Her voice, like a soothing tonic, enhanced my reflections. We manifest molecules stick together. We're prolific. Back to the Nam. I walked out of the gate and into Tainan City. My focus was physical, seeking release of my tension. I was responding according to the tenuous laws of nature. At least I perceived them to be tenuous. As I ventured down unfamiliar streets with darkness descending, I felt somehow complete. Confident youth is naive, yet blind to his naivety. Conceit is a dangerous ego. The fruits of experience are nonetheless harvested in the hindsight of just such reckless behavior. Mama-san called out from the shadows conspiratorially, "G.I., you like young girl tonight, maybe?" I replied with a guttural yes. My voice still cracked now and then in these situations of imminent lust, and I was shy to risk embarrassment with words. "This is my niece, Quang," she said with snake-like sibilance. "You sleep, 20 MPC, okay?" I maturely replied with all the worldliness I could muster. We went into a back bedroom with only one window, a bed, and a chair. As we undressed, the rain started singing through the tin roof. The mood matched its rhythm. We touched and caressed each other as intimate children. The fire came upon us, spreading through our veins like a demon gone mad. Timeless desire in a moment of passion, the rapture of blind emotion. As our frantic intentions were building to explosion, the ultimate expression of need, we became one, rode the peak together, and began our descent, clouds and rain. As she nestled in the crook of my arm, murmuring multilingual sounds of satisfaction, with her head on my chest and her leg thrown across my loins, the door suddenly burst open, and 2 AK-armed VC shouted and gestured for her to get over against the far wall. They just smiled menacingly at me as she obeyed. I wondered what had happened to my early warning system while they advanced. As one AK toyed with my left testicle, the other my right, I shriveled and cringed. They laughed with derision. I'd never felt so small and inadequate. The room erupted in gunfire. I closed my eyes, tried to have a heart attack, and couldn't quite. Opening my eyes, I looked from one dead VC to the other, and then encountered the vision of Quang, standing naked, my M16 trembling in her hands, a look of wonder etched on her face. The reason the VC had paid her no attention, it dawned on me, was because she too was VC. Damn. "Now what?" I asked, just to make conversation. She glared at me, raising the gun with feelings indoctrinated by hate from infancy. I held my breath and gazed into her eyes relentlessly. If she was going to kill me, she'd have to do it looking into the eyes of love. She smiled fleetingly, lowered the gun, and hung her head. She whispered, "Didi Mao, now G.I., or we both will die." I dressed with clumsy speed, my nerves still raw, my scrotum still twitching. I crossed to her and touched her cheek as I took my gun from her hand. Looking up at me, her eyes held sorrow for the parts we must play on the stage of life. I felt the futile pang of every attempt I'd chanced to act in as my role wound through the labyrinth of scene after scene and died a little inside. I heard angry voices in the hall. I left that theater through the window in full flight. Crashing through the glass, I found myself in mid-flight. My average flying time is about 6 or 7 seconds. So when I'd been airborne for about 3.5 seconds, I considered that to be mid-flight. Looking down, I saw pigs and ducks and their mucky excrement wallow rushing up to meet me. I'd been told to eat shit many times, but this was the only time I actually did it. I rose to my feet, wobbly, as oinks, squeals, and quacks assaulted my ears. Then another sound, automatic AK fire from the window. I dove right, trying to hide behind a large sow. She fell on me as the rounds raked her side. I crawled toward the alley. Seems like every time I crawl, it's right after I've just flown. Cause and effect? The bullets were searching. They couldn't see me. I came to a crouch and sprinted with feeling. No Olympian ever ran with more purpose. Something stung my right hip, and I knew I'd been nicked. As I walked through the gate 10 minutes later, smelly, bloody, and beat to death, the guard asked incredulously, "Where the hell have you been?" "Muskrat hunting," I replied, walking away. "They only come out at night." "Grandpa, what's it like to get nicked?" "Fairly annoying, son. It seems unusually cruel to chip away at our bodies in order to build character."